being happy doesn't necessarily mean you get rid of all those negative emotions, but it means ideally that ratio between the positive ones and the not so positive ones is pretty decent. So that's kind of being happy in your life. But being happy with your life is how you think your life is going. It's your answer to the question, all things considered, am I satisfied with my life? And social scientists use this definition because it kind of encompasses this, what they often call the affective and the cognitive parts of happiness. So the kind of emotional parts of happiness, how you feel in your life, but also the cognitive parts, how you think your life is going. And the best case scenario is that we find strategies, behaviors, mindset shifts, and so on that can boost both of those at the same time.
I guess my question is, how do they interact with each other, and don't they overlap?
They overlap a bunch, but I think it's worth noting that there are times in our life and maybe people that we know where we see those two parts of happiness dissociating, right? I mean, I think, maybe on the show, you've interacted with folks who have every hedonic pleasure in their life, kind of getting positive emotion all the time, but maybe they're experiencing a lack of meaning or don't know what their life is about. I think, I'm often called upon to these events with very rich people where I sometimes see they're kind of going through that, like lots of hedonic pleasure, but kind of a lack of meaning.
Can you just, for the record, define and then give examples of hedonic pleasure?
Yes. Yeah.
We don't say hedonic a lot on this podcast.
Yeah, no, it's true. So hedonic pleasure is just kind of like, the hedonism kinds of things that you experience in life. So the drinking the best wine, sleeping in the most
how about Hershey's bar?
Things. Hershey's bar, I think, is a strong.
Hedonic.
I think people would quibble about whether that's the best hedonic pleasure chocolate. I'm a Hershey's fan.
It was
myself,
what was available in the cafeteria.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly. Like, popping into a Hershey's bar is kind of experiencing that moment of hedonic pleasure. Probably it will give you a little mini boost of positive emotion. But, if that was it, without a sense of purpose.
It worked for me prior to the show. Explain something else so that we understand what we're measuring. So if you ask me the question, and I'm very lucky and I think I'm a generally happy person. Am I happy in my life? I am.
Mm-hmm.
Am I happy with my life? I sure am. There are moments that I'm unhappy. Right?
Yeah.
So, catch me on a day that things are not going well, or there's something wrong with my kids, not happy. But that's not what you mean. So when the question is asked, are you or are you not unhappy, over what time period? Is it that day? Like, what's the snapshot value versus overall, or how you felt last week? How do you think about that?
Yeah, researchers use different time horizons on that. How are you feeling in your life right now? That could be literally right now. We're having this conversation. You just had that chocolate bar. How are you feeling right now? Often it's done in the last week. Self-report these positive emotions, right? But the idea is that what we're trying to get at is a kind of on average, how are you feeling? And I think that first one, how you're feeling in your life, that one tends reasonably, I think, to move around a little bit more with the circumstances. You just had the chocolate bar, you might be feeling a little happier in your life, but hopefully the chocolate bar isn't necessarily changing, all things considered, how satisfied are you with your life? That one tends to be a little bit stable.
I mean, the problem is, so let's say I get on the scale tomorrow, and I really didn't need, or in my higher order brain function, didn't need the 26 grams of carbs. And let's say I'm not happy with the scale the next day. How should I think about the fact that I had the chocolate bar the day before? How do we think about delayed gratification and its relationship to happiness?
Yeah, this is an important philosophical question, right? And when we talk about maximizing happiness, we have to ask the question, in some ways, whose happiness are we maximizing, right? And I think we often think about the case that you're bringing up, right? Which is, you today is eating this high carb chocolate bar that might make you tomorrow kind of sad, right? This is cases of what's often called sort of temporal discounting, right? We discount us in the future and we kind of give in to temptation now and kind of mess up.
That's a different guy.
It's
Tomorrow's
a different guy. Tomorrow, Laurie is a totally different. But interestingly, happiness researchers also talk about the other problem, which is if it's myopic to kind of screw over your future self, you can think of cases of what you might call hyperopia. And by that, I mean, many of us have, that really nice bottle of wine that's been sitting on the shelf for that perfect day, or, those frequent flyer miles that are adding up for the perfect time to take a vacation, or me, I think women have this, there's like these spa products. I buy this nice bath bomb or this candle that I'm going to use on the perfect night when I have time. And then the bottle of wine, the frequent flyer miles, all these things kind of expire over time because we haven't gotten around to them. And so I think for happiness, we also have to worry about these cases of hyperopia too. Are we really kind of, kind of messing up the happiness that we could be experiencing now because we're so worried about the future that we wind up not maximizing overall.
Yeah. Well, so that's a very important question. And I have a personal anecdote in which what you just said resonates a lot. I got married 25 years ago. We went to Italy and we could barely afford, but we bought these nice bottles of red wine in Tuscany. Mm-hmm. Brunello di Montalcino, one of the great wines on planet Earth. And, we had a bunch left over and they sat in the wine fridge or in the cellar for years and years. And then I happened to be in Italy this year. And I overheard someone at a wine tasting say, these Brunellos, they're wonderful wines, they're the great wines. They last about 30 years. And the wines that we had bought 25 years ago were themselves about 5 years old. So I realized we had these bottles of wine that we kept saving for some special day in the future. So at the first opportunity, we took a couple of bottles to good friends of ours and opened them. And, one of the bottles was ruined. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So lesson learned.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, that's classic case of hyperopia. But I think it happens in these, the wine bottles are the really salient examples because it happens across decades. But, how often are we, checking our emailers, trying to squeeze one more work thing in when we're not taking time to hang out with our kids or talk with our spouse, right? When we sort of think back and our kid leaves home and, we might think of those moments as precious, even though they don't feel kind of precious now. So I think in our kind of attempt to sort of, I'll get ahead for future me, we sometimes are screwing over present us in a way that we forget, but can really have a negative impact on our overall happiness over time.